So I'd wanted to be a doctor, become a doctor. Wow. In fact, a pediatrician specifically. And I used to tell people I want to be a pediatrician. But my secondary school did this thing where even though you were a science student, you could do lots of art subjects. So I was in SS2 in a FGGC, and I was doing physics, chemistry, biology. Biology was compulsory for everybody. But I dropped for that maths because I wasn't getting it. But I was also doing literature. I was doing economics. I was doing CRS. And then one day, it was SS3, and all federal schools had gone on strike. And it gave me a moment. SS3 first term, beginning of first term, but all federal schools had gone on strike. Federal schools had gone on strike. So it gave me a moment to reflect. Yes, ma'am. And I looked at my results. And I had a D in chemistry, C in biology, C in physics. No, you can laugh. Just laugh when I say the other part. But then in literature, I would have an A.
I want to start with, the young Laju growing up. Interestingly, when I was doing some research about you, I realized that you wrote your first play in your primary school, and then they acted that play, and you were just behind the scenes. Yes. So how was it like growing up? Were you exposed to arts, poetry, all of that, or how was it that you just delved into media?
So my dad is a doctor, but he liked to read and he liked to write. Yes. So I think I got that from him. Growing up was really beautiful for me. We didn't have everything, but we had everything. So it was a situation where my parents did their very best to provide all that they could for us. And then even when we didn't even have all that every other person had, we didn't seem like we lacked, because they went out of their way to just really be there for us. And they provided in the ways that counted, both on the outside and on the inside. So I did have a really good upbringing that I'm grateful to God for. And my parents really bent over backwards, even in difficult times, just to provide. But they were also very intentional about raising children who were outspoken, children who could. So when people say things like, I can never tell my dad that, I'm like, I can't relate. So I cannot. But they were also pretty disciplined as well. But they were very intentional about how they raised us, my sisters and I, and I'm very grateful for that. And my dad did instill in me a love for writing. So I did write my first play. Around that time, primary. It was our primary 5 graduation, my primary school then. I think they said they had chosen him because I was the only one that didn't write about boy meets girl. I didn't write about the prince and the papa and the poor girl getting married. But it was a good play. But I also remember that I was supposed to be in the play as a madman that could dance, but I couldn't dance.
Madman?
Yes, there was a madman character, but I couldn't dance, so they removed me. So all I did was take a bow at the end of the play. So that's really beautiful. I also wrote my first poem in primary 3. It was "Oh Grandpa Up in the Sky," just to edit, to say goodbye. Why should we, when we still meet up in heaven, the Lord God's bosom? My grandpa died.
Primary 3.
Yeah, my grandpa died. So yeah, but I think it was in primary 3 I really fell in love with writing, because I had this teacher that was very passionate about creative writing, amongst other things. And I remember giving me feedback one day, and she said, "Oh, you have a gift for writing, but can you read this person's work? Can you read this person's essay book, so that you know how to better structure your thoughts?" And the person whose work she had asked me to read was Ililochi Onwuzodene, I remember. But it just really kind of helped me give structure to what I was doing at the time. And we had this little essay book. So I think that was when I fell in love with writing.
Pastor Laju, it feels like you were a Nepo baby. Were you? Because
no, I wasn't actually. My parents didn't live in their own house until we were all married and had done our master's degrees.
Wow.
Yes, I wasn't a Nepo baby. In fact, my dad's a doctor, but he wasn't. I always tease him that he was a good doctor but a bad businessman. So so there was a time when he was working for a particular hospital, and eventually he started his own. But when he started his own, a lot of people were his partner traveled abroad, so it's not a day Japa started, and he had to close down the hospital. And then my mom had a shop. She was a teacher, but she also had a shop. And my dad, who was a trained medical doctor, had to close down the hospital, and he would come to this shop to be cutting chicken, selling chicken and coke at that time. So it wasn't, they were just educated and they loved us and they communicated with us. And I think that helped. Because shortly after that period, then he got a job with the World Health Organization. I was in secondary school already at that time. And so that now really elevated our finances. Yes. But before then, we used to live in one house where if you want to enter the staircase of the house, you have to bend your head because the space was small. Then after bending, you have to be alert because there's water on the floor, so there are stones. So it's like a bridge. So if you don't bend and then quickly jump, your leg will enter the water. So whether it was rainy season or not, there was always water in that place because it was. But they did their best. They did. My parents were never the ones to maybe buy new things for themselves if their children were not taken care of. So we were always a priority for them. Yes. And I think that was it. Secondary school, I went to Federal Girls, Benin.
Oh.
I was a boarder for 6 years. So it was from uni that, okay, I went to a private school.
Yes.
That you could now say, okay, maybe.
Started changing.
Yes, yes.
Yes, because I mean, when I was, like you said, you wrote a poem, and all these things are Nepo baby things. It's not the usual.
I think just the fact that my parents were educated,
okay,
and they were willing to invest in us, I think that really helped. So even though we were not rich in money, they were pretty rich in knowledge, in exposure to a reasonable extent. It's not as if either of us had traveled anywhere at that time, but my dad was that kind of person that used to read wide, very exposed. So I think that kind of just really helped us growing up.
Wow, that's amazing. But then, in between your stories, we're speaking about you not featuring in the. Because I always wonder, okay, Pastor Laju always writes books, directs movies, produce movies, but you never feature.
So do you think it's a scars from my childhood?
Yes, that's what I was about to say.
So I think that I have a deep respect for actors. I do.
Pastor Laju, you actually.
I have a deep respect for actors. I have some stage experience, maybe from drama unit in secondary or primary school. And for example, if you see anything that I featured in, I did one scene. Like in Last Tomorrow, I did one scene. In Silver Ever After, I did one scene. Because the level of commitment it takes to be an actor. My mom featured in an ad we did for ONOBIREN recently. It's not out yet. Yeah. And she said, you guys, they try. Because she was like, I was there for 6 hours before they finally shot my parts. I will hold my team responsible. They were the ones who brought that. She said, I was there for 6 hours. And then he said, when I did my parts was Waka Pass. I said, Mom, did you see anything? She said, yes. I said something, but they didn't catch my voice. So I was just basically, so the patience it takes to be an actor, I don't have it. So I would rather, okay, I'm doing one scene. When is my part? You guys should call me. Because sometimes I even if you're playing, because no extra is even the extras do. It's a lot of waiting. Yes. And anything that doesn't really put me in control of my time, you're unlikely to find me there. Wow. So I have respect for actors and what they do, and I don't take them for granted. But I think it's just a difference between knowing what you can do once in a while and what's your core. And because of how busy I am and how intentional I am with my life by God's grace, I'm more intentional about focusing on what my core is. So, for example, I write, but I don't direct. I produce as an executive producer, but I usually have a producer on set. So it's really figuring out, okay, what am I really good at? I'm good at just really driving the vision of the company. Yes. I'm good at writing. Yes. I'm good at relating with people. I'm good at the business side of film and saying, okay, how do we make sure that this is profitable? But I think that the moment I started employing good directors, it was another level for me.
That's amazing. Okay, let's take it back, because I don't know if you know, I went to Covenant University as well. I did you left a track record. I was with SLK. I was with SLK, and recently he was like, do you know that your CUTG anthem was composed by Pastor Laju? I said, how?
It was me and one other guy. So I wrote the first part. He wrote the script. We played the parts. He set the stage, our audience of one. His word made flesh, by his grace we perform through us. Yes. The vision lives on. Then the other part, then the other part was written by, I think, a guy named Daniel.
Wow.
So
because he was telling me, I was like, how can Pastor Laju? He said you were the chaplain, or
yes, I was. Then the units, I don't think they still have chaplains now.
We do.
But then so I was a unit chaplain. In fact, I handed over to the person who handed over to someone who is one of our pastors now, Pastor Thomas Makinwa.
Wow.
so the person I handed over to us, champagne, handed over to him. So it's a full circle. Even in CTG, we had Mike Amasamis, who directed my first film, my second film. I think my first two films, and is still a friend. There were quite a number of CTG people there.
I remember. I think there was old CUTG clip that is on YouTube. I saw
Okay.
Olushola there.
Yes, that was my first encounter with Olushola.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to work. I had graduated,
Yes.
but I used to work for a newspaper, and I used to cover education.
Yes.
So whenever they had drama nights, because I could cover it on the education of my paper, I would come and cover it. So that was the first. If you check, I think that's the first time Olushola was
Yes.
mentioned in the papers, because he wrote that particular
Column.
drama nights film, the play. He wrote that play.
Okay.
And Amasamis, I think, directed it. So I if I'm not mistaken, so it's a full circle moment, I think, for lots of us.
It's great to see everyone, in their own part doing so well and growing. But yes, you mentioned something about your journalism. Yes, you were actually actively in journalism.
Yes, I was.
Because you studied mass communication.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so why did you quit?
I wouldn't really say I quit. I think it was time. So I did do mass communication, but I don't think there was a part of me that wanted to spend my life as a journalist.
Yes.
My dad's a doctor, so I wanted to be a doctor, become a doctor. In fact, a pediatrician specifically. And I tell people I want to be a pediatrician. But my secondary school did this thing where even though you were a science student, you could do lots of art subjects. So I was in SS2 in FGGC, and I was doing physics, chemistry, biology. Biology was compulsory for everybody. But I dropped for that maths because I wasn't getting it. But I was also doing literature. I was doing economics. I was doing CRS. And then one day, it was SS3, and all federal schools had gone on strike. And it gave me a moment. SS3 first term, beginning of first term, but all federal schools had gone on strike. Federal schools had gone on strike. So it gave me a moment to reflect.
Yes, ma'am.
And I looked at my results. And I had a D in chemistry, C in biology,
Sorry for
C in physics. No, you can laugh. Just laugh when I say the other part. But then in literature, I would have an A. Wow. I was doing literature as well. In CRS, maybe I'd have an A or a B. In English, I'd have an A. In economics, an A or B. In CRS, and I told my mom, I said, Mommy, I'm going to change to art class. SS3. I said, nobody changes art class in SS3. But I looked at my dad and said, the way this result is going, I'm going to stay home. Because even with the songs, I couldn't really figure out all the parts of the activity series. Is the activity series? But that's on sodium, calcium, magnesium.
Oh, activity. Oh,
is it activity? I think it's
is it activity series?
Yes, now. Anyway, those periodic table. I couldn't, even with the song, like I would just hook somewhere. I didn't understand what I was doing in those classes. So I came back and wrote a very convincing letter to the guidance counseling department because writing was my thing.
Yes,
and they were very convinced. And so I moved from SS3D to SS3C. And I took on government for the first time. And I read exam focus from beginning to the end in SS3, and I got a B in government. So I moved from doing 9 subjects. I dropped physics and chemistry, added government to the other courses I was doing, and that's how I made my papers for. So I changed to mass comm very, very recently. But I'd always desired to make films, and I'd always loved stories. So I used to write, maybe if they were doing an event in my secondary school, then there was no form of entertainment, no smartphones, radios were rarely seen in secondary school in boarding house. So if we had meetings, I would write a poem or a short story. And I'd known the Lord early enough. So many of my short stories and poetry were faith-based. And I used to say when I grow up, these are the kind of things I would like to write. And so I had also kind of had a love for film. But you have to remember, this was before YouTube.
Yes, I thought.
There wasn't. I wanted to go and work for Tyler Perry, and I didn't. There was no social media.
Big dreams.
Because he used to make just Christian films at the time. I used to find that pretty inspiring. But there was no social media. There was no
to connect.
So I went and did the mass comm, and I knew that the Lord would have had me stay in the space where I was for about 5 years, because I had a sense that I was supposed to leave before my daughter turned. I think before she turned 2 or 1. I can remember. I think before she turned 2, if I'm not mistaken. So it just came to a moment and a season where my time was up. So it wasn't like I was pursuing journalism. In fact, if I wanted to choose an aspect of mass communication, I may not have chosen print journalism. But NYSC found me there. And I just knew that the Lord would have me be there at that particular point in time, because it happened to be something that could fit into my schedule. Remember, ministry I said at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
So it happened to be something that could fit into my schedule for ministry as well. Because I had considered broadcast, But I remember speaking to somebody I respected in broadcast, and I was like, when last did you go to church? And he said, I can't remember because I don't always have Sundays off. And I was like, this is not for me. And it wasn't really as democratized where maybe one could have their own podcast so easily. So when I resigned my job, I thought I was going to be a blogger. I thought I was going to be a Christian blogger. So I used to write lots of articles on LajuIren.com, and I'd get my friends who had businesses to try and just sponsor something on the website.
So you had a website?
Yes, I did.
Domain. Wow.
Yeah, it's still active.
Wow.
I don't know, but it's still active. So many of my something like Dating Intelligently was first a series of articles on my website. Something like Selfies the Bible Girls was first a series of articles on my website. And then I now moved into becoming an author. So that was my primary focus, apart from ministry, which has been a constant throughout my life. And then I wrote Loving Amanda. And when I wrote Loving Amanda, it rekindled my love for film.
What of Girlcopedia?
Girlcopedia, I wrote that. That was the first book I wrote after I graduated. Oh, wow. Yes. That's first ever book I wrote. And then I did a reprint years later. So when I wrote Loving Amanda, that was my first fiction. So I was like, this would be nice as a film. And I was reaching out to the 1-2 people I knew who were filmmakers, and they weren't really giving me like active feedback. And now I know why, because for every filmmaker you meet, they have 15 ideas and only money to sponsor 2. So even when people pitch an idea to me, I'm like, like I can't really take your idea now because I have lots of ideas and I've not really been able to fund all of them, right? So that now rekindled my love for, okay, I want to make this particular film, Loving Amanda. Yes. Let me even get into film myself, since I'm not seeing a clear pathway into any other person helping me with it. And so that's how I started making short films. And then I made a short film, 2 short films. I made a series.
Yes, there was one Amanda Dara was on.
Yes, that was my first short film. Yes. It was
Love
is a Star. That was my first short film, and then we moved from there to finally actually making Loving Amanda, and then I've gone on to make other features until we now here at what I think is our 10th film. ONOBIREN. I think ONOBIREN is our 10th or 11th film. I need to calculate properly.
That name ONOBIREN, what does that mean? What does it mean?
It means woman. It means woman.
I thought you were trying to say ONOBIREN, because ONOBIREN in Yoruba means this woman. So I thought you were trying to. I didn't quite understand, but I said I was going to ask you.
You don't understand that there are other languages apart from Yoruba. I don't get it. Yeah. Okay. But I also get you're coming from. Yoruba and Shekiri are a little similar. But ONOBIREN is woman in Shekiri.
Yeah. Pastor Laju, where are you from?
I'm Shekiri.
Oh wow, because even Laju sounds Yoruba.
Yeah, but Laju. Well, what will it be, Laju?
Laju, exactly.
Yeah. And who will name their child Laju? So it's Ushorishe Laju.
Laju.
The handwork of God is great. So it's like Ishe Oluwatobi, I think.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So before we leave your early days and enter into some film, I remember I watched that interview while doing my little research. I saw that you said you knew God quite early, and even when you were in exams and sitting down with a friend, you didn't allow them to copy.
So interestingly, it was me and my friend who made the decision not to even copy. So nobody would even come near me because they already knew that if they ask me, I won't answer.
So you had a clear sense of purpose about God quite early, writing about Him, even writing articles about Him and putting online.
I think it's all the Lord. It's all Him.
Who was teaching you? Who was training you?
I think in my very early days, my closest mentor was my elder sister. I have 2 older sisters. So the one they're both really good mentors to me up until today. But the one who was just right above me, we were in the same secondary school, was my sister Toju. She was 3 years ahead. And so when by the time I entered FGGC, she was in SS1. So I joined all the units she was in. She was in the visitation units, so I'll join. She was in drama groups, so I'll join. So as she was graduating, in fact, after she graduated, by the time I was in SS2, I was holding all the positions that she had held. And she was not even the one who handed over to me. She had graduated like 3 years before. Yes, but somehow she was SU president, I became SU president. She was drama unit president, I became drama unit president. She was visitation president, I became visitation president. She was a follow-up teacher. I became a follow-up teacher. And we did have a very strong fellowship in my secondary school at that time. So I think that really helped. Just having someone I could look up to could just show me the ropes.